Have you ever caught yourself trapped in a story your mind keeps replaying, where emotions twist reality, pull you deeper into illusions, and keep you from seeing things as they truly are? This video is a wake-up call to break free from that cycle of self-deception and regain control over your emotional world, once and for all. We'll dive into the heart of Stoicism, a timeless philosophy that isn't just ancient wisdom, but a practical toolkit for modern life. A way to sharpen your clarity, master your impulses, and transform the way you experience every moment. Your emotional mastery begins not by suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist, but by asking the hardest question: is this emotion truly grounded in reality? Or is it just a story my mind is spinning? You'll discover why Stoicism teaches us to accept reality as it is, enough in itself, and stop chasing illusions or expectations that others never fulfilled. We'll explore how the first spark of an emotion can either ignite a wildfire or be calmly extinguished, depending on how quickly and wisely we respond. This journey will expose the danger of turning fleeting feelings into permanent conclusions, and the power of logic as your anchor when emotions threaten to overwhelm. Moreover, you'll learn how real peace comes from accepting people as they are, setting firm boundaries, and refusing the exhausting quest to prove your worth to others. At its core, this is a story of profound self-mastery, where understanding and governing your own inner state becomes the foundation before trying to comprehend or change anyone else. Emotional competence and lucidity aren't just skills. They're lifelines in every relationship and in your relationship with yourself. By embracing the path of Stoic self-exploration, you open the door to deeper authenticity, balance, and meaning in life. Stay with me to uncover how mastering your emotions isn't a distant ideal, but an achievable transformation that can redefine your daily existence and open a new dimension of freedom within. If this is making sense to you so far, if you're finding a flicker of recognition in these words, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Someone else seeking to cut through the noise and find their own inner clarity. We've all been there, haven't we? A fleeting remark, an unexpected glance, a minor setback, and suddenly a small spark ignites within us. In that initial moment, it's just a feeling, a raw impression. But then, almost imperceptibly, our minds begin to spin. We take that spark, that raw data point, and we weave it into a complex narrative. They meant to offend me. This means I'm a failure. This will never work out. What began as a simple emotional impulse quickly morphs into a full-blown story, complete with characters, motivations, and a dramatic plot twist, usually at our own expense. This is the danger Stoicism warns us against, turning fleeting feelings, momentary impressions, into permanent conclusions about ourselves, others, and the world. Think about it. You receive an email from your boss that sounds curt. The initial feeling is a jolt of anxiety. That's the spark. But then your mind races. They're unhappy with my performance. I'm going to be scrutinized. My job is on the line. Suddenly, an email that might just be the result of a busy person typing quickly becomes a catastrophic prophecy of your professional downfall. This isn't reality. It's a story, a narrative spun by an unexamined emotional impulse. And the more you replay it, the more real it feels, even though it's entirely fabricated in your own head. The Stoics understood that the power of logic isn't to suppress these initial sparks, but to act as our anchor. When emotions threaten to overwhelm, Logic provides a stable ground from which to assess what is truly happening. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He didn't mean reacting with a forced smile or a shrug of indifference. He meant reacting with reason. He meant asking, is this impression I'm having about this email, this glance, this setback, is it accurate? Is it grounded in objective fact? Or is it a projection of my fears, my insecurities, my past hurts? This is where the practice of distinguishing between an impression, fantasia, and an assent, synchetathesis, becomes crucial. An impression is the initial appearance of something, the raw data, the spark of emotion. It simply is. You feel a pang of sadness, a rush of anger, a flicker of envy. This is natural. It's part of being human. But you don't have to assent to it. You don't have to give it your full belief and allow it to dictate your reality and your actions. You don't have to sign off on the story it wants to tell. Before you give your assent, pause. Apply your reason. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have for this story? Is there another interpretation of the situation that is equally, or even more, plausible? Am I projecting my own fears onto an ambiguous situation? Is this emotion helping me or hindering me? This isn't about denying your feelings. It's about not letting your feelings define your reality without a rigorous examination. It's about recognizing that while you might feel like a failure after a minor mistake, that feeling is distinct from the objective fact that you are a person who made a mistake, which is an opportunity for learning, not a permanent label. In our modern world, we are bombarded with impressions, the curated lives on social media, the instant gratification of online shopping, the endless news cycles. Each of these can trigger a cascade of emotions: envy, desire, fear. If we simply assent to every impression, if we believe every story our mind spins based on these external triggers, we become slaves to them. We spend our lives chasing the illusory happiness of others, comparing ourselves to impossible standards, or living in a state of perpetual anxiety. The power of logic, then, is the power of discernment. It's the ability to pause, step back, and evaluate. It's the quiet strength to say, I acknowledge this feeling, but I refuse to let it write my story for me. It allows us to differentiate between what is an objective truth and what is merely a subjective interpretation, often biased by our own emotional state. It transforms us from passive recipients of emotional storms into active navigators of our inner landscape, choosing which currents to follow and which to resist. This is how we prevent fleeting feelings from becoming the permanent architects of our self-perception and our worldview. But this internal mastery, this discerning logic, isn't just for our solitary reflections. It profoundly impacts our relationships with others. After all, many of our strongest emotions are tied to other people, our expectations of them, their perceived actions towards us, and our desire for their validation. This brings us to another cornerstone of Stoic wisdom. The path to real peace comes from accepting people as they are, setting firm boundaries, and refusing the exhausting quest to prove your worth to others. Consider the energy we expend trying to change people. We criticize, we cajole, we strategize, hoping that if we just say the right thing or act the right way, they will finally conform to our ideal vision of who they should be. Whether it's a family member, a colleague, or a romantic partner, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of disappointment because they consistently fail to meet our unarticulated or unrealistic expectations. This constant struggle to mold others into our preferred versions is a primary source of emotional turmoil. The Stoic practice of accepting people as they are isn't a passive resignation, nor is it an endorsement of harmful behavior. It is, first and foremost, a recognition of reality. Just as we must accept that some things are beyond our control, the weather, the past, so too must we accept that other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions are ultimately outside our sphere of direct influence. You can control your reaction to them, your approach to them, but you cannot directly control them. This distinction between what is up to us and what is not up to us is fundamental to Stoicism. When you truly accept that you cannot change another person, you liberate an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy that was previously wasted in futile attempts. You stop fighting battles that can't be won. You replace the frustration of unfulfilled expectations with the clarity of understanding that people operate from their own internal logic, their own experiences, their own current level of awareness. This acceptance doesn't mean you have to agree with them or even like their actions. It simply means acknowledging their autonomous existence as beings separate from your will. It's about letting go of the internal story that says they should be different and embracing the reality that they are as they are. From this foundation of acceptance, the concept of setting firm boundaries naturally emerges. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about protecting yourself. They are about defining what you will and will not tolerate, what you will and will not allow into your inner citadel. If someone consistently disrespects you, if they drain your energy, if their actions cause you distress, accepting them as they are doesn't mean continuing to expose yourself to their behavior. It means recognizing their nature and then drawing a clear line, saying, I accept that this is how you are, but I cannot participate in this dynamic. Boundaries are an act of self-preservation and self-respect, rooted in the Stoic understanding of what is within your control. You control your proximity to certain people, the conversations you engage in, the situations you allow yourself to be part of. For instance, you might accept that a family member will always be prone to negativity. You can't change their disposition, but you can choose to limit the amount of time you spend with them, or steer conversations away from trigger topics, or simply decide not to engage in debates that you know will lead nowhere. This isn't coldness, it's wisdom. It's protecting your own peace of mind, which is a virtuous pursuit. And finally, consider the exhausting quest to prove your worth to others. This is perhaps one of the most pervasive, subtle, and self-defeating stories we tell ourselves. We strive for external validation, believing that if others approve of us, if they praise us, if they acknowledge our achievements, then we will be worthy. We might contort ourselves into shapes that aren't authentically ours, saying things we don't believe, doing things that go against our values, all in the hope of securing that elusive approval. The Stoics knew this was a fool's errand. Your worth, they would argue, is not conferred upon you by others. It is inherent in your capacity for reason, your ability to live virtuously, and your commitment to your own inner character. Seneca wrote, "You ask what is the proper limit to a person's wealth. First, to have what is necessary, and second, to have what is enough." We can apply this to worth as well. First, to recognize our inherent worth as rational beings, and second, to cultivate a character that is enough for ourselves, independent of external applause. When you release the need to prove yourself, You stop living in response to external judgments and start living in accordance with your own values. You stop chasing a fleeting sense of validation that, even when achieved, is quickly replaced by the need for more. Instead, you ground your sense of self in your own integrity, your efforts to live wisely, courageously, justly, and with temperance. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or indifferent to others. It means your actions stem from a place of inner conviction rather than an anxious desire for external affirmation. It is an act of radical self-acceptance that frees you from the tyranny of other people's opinions, allowing you to focus on cultivating the only approval that truly matters, your own, based on your reasoned judgment and virtuous conduct. At its core, all of this culminates in a story of profound self-mastery. Understanding and governing your own inner state isn't just a personal achievement. It becomes the indispensable foundation before you can even begin to truly comprehend or constructively interact with anyone else. How can you navigate the complexities of another person's emotions if you are constantly tossed about by your own? How can you offer clarity or stability if your own mind is a whirlwind of unexamined assumptions and reactive impulses? Emotional competence and lucidity aren't merely desirable skills. In a world as interconnected and emotionally charged as ours, they are lifelines. In every relationship, with your partner, your children, your friends, your colleagues, and most crucially, with yourself, your ability to understand, process, and wisely respond to your own emotions is paramount. This emotional intelligence, rooted in Stoic principles, means you can observe your feelings without being consumed by them. You can recognize a surge of anger, but instead of lashing out, you can pause and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this anger justified by facts or by a misinterpretation? This lucidity allows you to communicate more effectively. When you're clear about your own emotional landscape, you can articulate your needs and boundaries without accusation or emotional manipulation. You can listen more attentively, free from the filter of your own unchecked biases and defensiveness. Imagine a disagreement with a loved one. If you are emotionally incompetent, you might react with defensiveness, blaming, or withdrawal. But with Stoic lucidity, you can approach the conversation from a place of calm rationality, seeking to understand, to find solutions, and to maintain the integrity of the relationship, even amidst tension. You recognize that their frustration might be a fleeting feeling, not a permanent judgment against you. And you respond to the issue at hand, not the story your mind tries to weave about their supposed intentions. This self-mastery transforms you into a reliable anchor, not just for yourself, but for those around you. When others are in distress, your calm presence, born of your own inner work, can be a source of strength and comfort. You don't try to fix their emotions, because you understand the futility of controlling what is not yours to control. Instead, you offer empathy, reasoned perspective, and a steady hand, all born from your own internal balance. This is not about being emotionless, but about being master of your emotions, rather than being mastered by them. By embracing this path of Stoic self-exploration, you don't just achieve a temporary fix. You open the door to a profound and sustainable transformation that touches every facet of your existence. This journey leads to deeper authenticity, a genuine alignment between who you are on the inside and how you present yourself to the world. free from the need for external validation. When you stop telling yourself fabricated stories about what you should be, and instead focus on what you are and what you can control, you step into your true self. This authenticity isn't performative. It's an organic outcome of living in accordance with reason and virtue. You also discover a profound sense of balance. Life will always present challenges, ups and downs. Stoicism doesn't promise a life free of suffering, but it offers the tools to navigate it with equanimity. This balance isn't a static state of indifference. It's a dynamic equilibrium where you can experience joy and sorrow, success and failure, without being swept away by either. You understand that these are all part of the human experience, and your inner peace isn't dependent on their presence or absence. You recognize that the stories of ultimate triumph or catastrophic failure are just that, stories, often exaggerated by our own emotional interpretations, rather than the objective reality of a continuous process of living and learning. And perhaps most significantly, this path reveals a deeper meaning in life. When you stop chasing illusions, when you stop getting entangled in manufactured dramas, when you accept reality as it is, you begin to see the inherent value and purpose in simply being. Meaning comes not from external achievements or the approval of others, but from the deliberate effort to live virtuously, to contribute positively where you can, and to master your own inner domain. It's finding meaning in the conscious choice to respond wisely, to cultivate your character, and to live with integrity, regardless of external circumstances. This is the profound freedom that comes from disentangling yourself from the stories your mind keeps spinning, and choosing instead to live within the grounded reality of the present moment, guided by reason and purpose. So I ask you, are you ready to stop being held captive by the stories your mind keeps replaying? Are you willing to ask the hard question, is this emotion truly grounded in reality, or is it just a story my mind is spinning? Your freedom, your peace, and your truest self lie beyond those self-spun narratives. The path of Stoicism offers a way to dissolve the illusions and embrace reality, seeing it not as a threat, but as the raw material for a life lived with unwavering clarity and strength. As Marcus Aurelius wisely reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This isn't just an ancient adage. It's an actionable blueprint for every moment of your modern life. It's an invitation to reclaim your inner sovereignty. What story will you choose to tell yourself now, knowing you have the power to discern truth from illusion? If this message resonated with you, if it sparked a new way of thinking, please consider subscribing to the channel for more insights into practical Stoicism. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's one story your mind often spins that you're ready to challenge with reason? Let's continue this conversation and build a community of clarity together. Thank you for watching.